As you know, we passed that tax on July 2nd. It was enabling legislation really to allow Philadelphia City Council to impose the tax. It's not a tax that I was ever crazy about. However, that is the option we were left with here in Harrisburg. When we passed that, we sent it over to the Senate because we took some things out of 1177 that the Senate had put in with the cigarette tax enabling legislation. When the Senate came back, not only did they put some other things into 1177, they put items that we removed from the fiscal code into 1177. So in addition to this enabling legislation for the cigarette tax, you have hotel tax enabling legislation for 3 or 4 counties, as well as what's called CRIZs, city revitalization zones, that apparently our leadership did not agree with on the Senate. So those items are back in the cigarette bill. We had planned to remove them in rules this week and vote the cigarette tax sort of almost cleanly, with a couple additions that the Senate made pertaining to schools. Well, I think some members in the intervening weeks from July 2nd till this week thought better of removing some of those local taxes as well. York County, for example, liked the idea of having a hotel tax enabling legislation. I think there was Washington County, Schuylkill County was at issue as well. So as we approach this week, I think there was some uncertainty by leadership of attendance, who we could get back, whether those folks who might not have made it back were yes votes. Then you had certain delegations who then said, we won't vote for this unless our county is included in it. Again, some uncertainty. Some other rumors about some Democrats maybe not voting for it because there'll be less Republicans voting for it. Why should we put up that vote again? So I think that combination of problems created a scenario for leadership that if we came back and didn't have the votes, that not only would that have been a problem and embarrassing, but maybe in the long term a problem. So once that thing goes down, we might not ever be able to revive it. So we have an opportunity in September to move ahead and try to do it then. Cigarette tax was already passed by City Council. It's a $2 a pack tax. I'm certainly concerned that whether or not that is a long-term sustainable tax because people will buy their cigarettes elsewhere. I think it hurts some local businesses. But, in this business you have choices. That's not a great choice to take that tax. At the same time, having our kids shortchanged even more. Our school district is living with the sins of the past. We have an enormous debt from a long time ago that district now pays. We have a pension payment of over $194 million coming up in this year, $368 in debt service. So they start out with almost $600 million before they buy a pencil. So that was the choice we had. We also put the Senate put some provisions on it to sunset it after 5 years, which really means that the legislature takes another look at it. The Senate would disallow them to borrow on that money. And then I had some charter school language in there, which gives us the ability to appeal district decisions that every other school district in Pennsylvania has that right except for Philadelphia. So we corrected that as well. So we think that moving forward, that still has a pretty good chance of passing. This gap in time would affect about 1% of the school district's budget. We think this doomsday scenario that's being presented right now is a little bit overblown. We think that it's a setback, certainly. We're confident, and I think our leaders are confident that we will pass this tax. And then we really needed to get into discussion overall about how we run this school district and how we fund it. We need to look at maybe a different governance model. And unlike every other school district, Philadelphia school personnel, both the SRC and the district, can't tax residents the way every other school district can. We're not used to that in Philadelphia. We have a different system. So we need to have an overall discussion about how to do it in the future because this year-by-year crisis kind of model is not working. Quite the controversy in Philly the last few weeks. It was sort of a media-driven frenzy. I got a call from a reporter who wanted to know if I knew that beer garden, a particular beer garden, was operating with off-premise catering permits. I said, I did not know that. Was that your intention, Representative, that we could have an operation running for 120 straight days based on off-premise catering permits? I said that was not the intention. Well, we sent a letter to the board to inquire about their interpretation. Somehow that letter got into the press. Next thing you know, I got about 3,500 contacts about people extolling the virtues of pop-up beer gardens in Philly. There's probably a half a dozen at least, very popular spots in Philly. I understand they're wonderful. Only a few are operating under this off-premise catering situation. And as you know, Herb, this was designed to allow someone at their residence to hire a caterer, to hire a restaurant with a license to come in and not only serve food, but then to legally be able to serve alcohol. It was really never intended for this. But we are looking at ways to maybe figure out a way to accommodate what's going on with the beer gardens, at the same time not allowing negative unintended consequences to occur. And what we mean by that is quality of life situations where not all the places are going to be run by the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society. They're not all going to be run by reputable licensees, and we're concerned about that. Because in any particular neighborhood, the way this law exists now and the way it's been, in my view, misinterpreted, a beer garden could pop up in any neighborhood, won't always look the way Center City does. And we're concerned about that. We're concerned about local residents and local elected officials not having control over it. Apparently our local elected officials in Center City are very much in favor of the beer gardens that are there. I've recently met with the Horticultural Society and some bar owners. And it doesn't seem to be much about competition. There's some concern about that, but people like these things. That was made very clear to me, more so than they care about schools and budgets and taxes and other things. We are always learning in this business. We try to be flexible to some extent to what people want and need if it doesn't violate other principles. And in my case, I'm just concerned about what happens in other neighborhoods that is unintended. So we'll look at this when we come back and keep on working on it. The beer gardens that exist now, they're operating under permits that were granted prior to March of this year. So nothing will happen to those permits. And as we proceed into next year, we have to really adjust it. So if beer gardens in Center City, Philadelphia are wonderful, maybe we can figure out a way to allow that and still keep in mind the concerns that many of us have about negative unintended consequences of that law, because it's been abused before. This is not the first time. This is a long-running sort of dispute that we've had with the LCB and the legislative side of things. We've had speakeasies pop up in abandoned houses. We've had people creating tailgates at stadiums, competing with bars and restaurants right there. So some of them are good things and others are not. But as a legislator that represents neighborhoods, I don't have Center City. I would want to be able to control that. I mean, maybe a beer garden on occasion would be a good thing. But in my neighborhood, I think my neighbors would not look kindly upon a brand new institution popping up for the entire bulk of the summer. So, as we've talked about, they won't always be the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society. It won't always be a reputable licensee, and we just have to be careful.